Welcome to part 3 of the CostX training video series. In part 3, we'll examine how to work with BIM, Building Information Modelling, within CostX, including extracting the quantities and creating a full BIM estimate in minutes. So, not only does CostX support a range of 2D files as we saw in part 1 of the training video series, but it can also support a huge range of BIM files. Firstly, we can support files from Revit, that is 3D DWFs. CostX can also support IFC files, which are the internationally recognised BIM file standard from Building Smart. So these files can be from ArchiCAD, Tekla and a range of other programs. Even SketchUp files are supported in CostX, so we have a range of options available to us. Once we've got our model loaded up and ready to go in CostX, it's easy to navigate around the model. Firstly, we can navigate around the model with this cube here. We can click on the fronts, we can click on the sides, or view it from the top. We can also click the mouse and just drag to move the model around as we want to. If we want to look inside the model, we can use what's called the eye function. So if I view it from the front, then hold down the E key on my keyboard, I can move the mouse forwards and backwards just to take sections through the model as I need to. There's also a transparent mode which will turn everything transparent on the drawing. This allows us to see things inside the model that we might not see otherwise. In addition to that, we also have layers in a 3D file like we do in 2D. So if I go to my layers view, I can view the individual layers on the left hand side here. I can turn them on and off as I need to, or I can click on the layers themselves to hide. Once I've done that, I can then invert my selection if I need to, as with the 2D. And I can show all layers again as I need to. After we've navigated around the model itself, we can then have a closer look at the model properties. So, say we want to have a closer look at the roof, we can click here and select Object Properties. We can see the properties that have come through with the model. There are specific naming conventions that will come through with the original architectural program. So here we've got 3 levels: the category, which is roofs, the family name, which is basic roof, and then the type name. Further down the object properties list, we've also got constraints. These can be imported into CostX as zones, and then we've got dimensions, which is what we use to populate the dimension groups. Once we're finished with this object properties box, we can click close. We can also explore the model by isolating individual parts as we need to. If we wanted to just isolate the roof, we can right click and then isolate the roof by showing only the objects in the category, family or type. So here we click on type. We can then show all objects again once we're finished by right clicking and selecting. We can also isolate parts of the model with the model tree. Opening up the Model tab brings up the model tree. Here we can view the entire hierarchical structure of the objects in the BIM file. If we just click on branches like so, we can view them individually. If we want to view multiple things at the same time, we can hold down the Control key and click on the ones that we want to see. If we select a single node, we can view the data behind that information by clicking on the Schedule button up here. This then just shows us the isolated components in the list, and we can view each one by clicking on the object and it will highlight in the schedule. We can also do it by clicking on the individual lines in the schedule and the object will highlight on our screen. Now, to get the quantities from the BIM file. There are a few different ways to get this information. Firstly, by extracting automatic quantities by using a BIM template. This is mainly used for DWF and DWFX Revit files. These templates here are supplied with the software, but if we select the Revit General one, which is the most common template, and select Open, CostX will run through the model and automatically extract the quantities. We can then see our quantities have been extracted into the dimension groups on the left hand side. Another way that we can get quantities from the BIM file is to use the model maps function. This allows users to determine what specific data will be extracted. For IFCs, we'd use the model maps function over the BIM templates, and some prefer to use model maps for all their BIM file types. To create a model map, click on the Model Maps button under the Dimensions ribbon. Then click Insert. So for example, here we could insert a model map entitled Columns. Once added, this displays the model mapping view. This gives us the model tree, the filtered model view, the schedule, and the mapping definition tab. To fill in the mapping definition section, we would first filter to the structural columns branch of the model tree. This view contains just the information we're interested in for the columns. Then we can just drag and drop the required property fields from the schedule into the corresponding field on the mapping definition tab. So, for the folder, I'm going to select level 1 and drag and drop that into the folder section. Additionally, we can add in subfolders if required. So, in this case, we have the level available as well. I'm going to add in a plus sign, then a backslash, enclosed in speech marks, and then I'm going to add in the base level section. For the dimension group name itself, I'm going to go through my list and I'm going to select the size of column. I'll then scroll further down and I'll fill in the volume from the volume column. Once I've done that, I can press the preview button to see what it would create. We can see here I have my folder of structural columns. I then have the floors broken down and then the quantities themselves. Once you're done, exit model maps by clicking on the close button. Any changes are saved automatically. We can then import the dimensions by using the model map we've just created. By clicking on the columns model map and then select. We can then see our dimension groups have been populated as per the preview screen. In CostX, you can actually add user-defined model properties into the schedule to supplement the existing model data, which is an excellent feature. Some examples might include elemental or trade codes, or additional property values, etc. To do this, we'd open up our schedule by clicking on the button up here. We can then right-click our schedule and save it into Excel. When in Excel, you can insert new columns and enter the data into the corresponding rows. It can then be added into the drawing by clicking on the Properties button up here, selecting the file name. Once reloaded, the new properties will appear on the schedule and in the Object Properties box. We can then view our added information by viewing it in yellow here. Anything we've added in ourselves via an external properties file will appear in yellow. The added information can be used in model maps to then create dimension groups. Yet another method to extract quantities and create a customized estimate is to use object-based dimension groups. This will create a specific takeoff somewhat similar to the model maps function. Say we want to extract quantities from the columns, I will right-click and isolate those columns. I'll then right-click and create the dimension group. Once we're done, we can click Insert. We can then just click on the objects that we want to include in the dimension group. Alternatively, we can right-click and import objects in an area, which will select any objects that are wholly enclosed within that box. Or the other option is to right-click and say Import Objects In, and then choose which you require. The final way that we can get quantities from the model is by manual measurement. So previously we've been in object mode, which focuses on getting the quantities from the object properties. For manual measurement, you need to switch into point mode. I'm going to isolate the objects that I'm going to measure to make it easier for myself. I'm then going to zoom in and select the dimension group on the left hand side that I want to measure into. I then click around the four corners of the object and press enter to complete. We can then see we've taken off the quantity. The other way to measure is to use the quick point mode, just like in 2D. This time I hold down the shift key on my keyboard and it detects the face of the object. So with one click I've then measured it. This manual measurement feature is a great tool to have under our belt for cases where the model does not contain all the quantities we need. Another great feature that CostX offers is the ability to create a drawing set from a set of DWF drawings. Once the drawings and model are loaded into CostX, we can create our drawing set by clicking on the Drawing Set button. Then Insert, we give it a name and select the drawings we want. Once this is done, all of the quantities that have been extracted from the BIM file are automatically displayed on the 2D as well. I can then click on my elevations and we can then see that the quantities are automatically highlighted as well. Drawings added from a multi-sheet DWF file are automatically included in a drawing set. The drawing set feature therefore adds a further useful method of reviewing the imported BIM dimensions. Once all the BIM quantities have been obtained, we can add rates and produce a complete estimate in the costing view. So this is essentially the same as when working with 2D only estimates, in that you have our hierarchical levels, our live links, and all the other features of the CostX workbook. We can either create a workbook from scratch by dragging and dropping dimension group values in, or use a previous workbook template from a past project. We can also use the method of creating a workbook from dimension groups, and when we select a rate library to use upon creating the new workbook, it means that a complete estimate of the BIM file can be created in seconds. Combining this with the automatic quantity extraction feature that we looked at early on, this means if we do have our templates set up, we can load up a BIM file and do an internal estimate in less than a minute by just adding the model, extracting automatic quantities, and then creating a workbook from dimension groups. This saves a huge amount of time and gives the user more of a chance to apply their intelligence to the estimate rather than spending all their time actually taking off the quantities. With the combination of this, plus all of CostX's other features including auto-revisioning, it's no wonder that CostX is the faster, smarter, and more accurate choice for 5D BIM estimating. So this concludes our video on part 3 of the CostX training video series, focusing on CostX's 3D and BIM features.